continue just to tell him how worthy he is on a Wednesday night. There's nobody like you. You reign supreme. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Hallelujah. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how you feel when you worship your Creator? It's a special, it's hard really to find the words to describe that feeling when you know that you're in the presence of God. Like when it just feels right. His presence is in this room tonight. I hope that song is our anthem, and I'll never get tired of telling you you're worthy. It's so good to see you on a Wednesday night. Anybody happy to be in church on Wednesday night? Hey, before you're seated, turn around and high five somebody. Tell them it's good to see you on Wednesday. Oh, you're finding your seat. Let me just say a big hello again. Man, thanks for putting a huge priority on being in the house of the Lord on our midweek service. I know the week's been crazy. Every week is crazy. Every week is busy. But you're here. And I'm excited about what the Lord has already done. I'm excited about the word of the Lord tonight. And it's going to be a special, we're entering into a really special season around the church. And I can't tell you how excited the team is about the month of March coming up and what is in store. In fact, I've been mentioning this the last several weeks. I'll mention it again tonight. You saw a flyer on your seat when you came in. But starting Sunday, we're launching it's a 5-week series because we're going to cap it with baptism on the 5th week there in March. It's going to be really, really special. But we're launching a series that we're calling Believe For It. And what the premise of this series is that we understand that there's things in your life that you're praying about, that you're hoping for, that you're believing God for. And we want to take a month and we want to highlight the needs and the things that you're believing God to do in your life. And we want to pray for them. We want to specifically pray for some needs. And here's what I believe. I believe we're going to see God do the miraculous over the next 5 weeks. Come on, it's the miracles that were performed in the Old and the New Testament are not just relegated to the Word of God. It can happen in your life. And so just so you know what's going to happen on Sunday, when you come in, there's going to be a card on every seat. And it's going to be a place for you to write down what you're believing God to do. And again, we've said this a lot. If it's something you can do and accomplish on your own, don't write it on the card. I want you to write something that you can't do on your own. That when God does it, you only have one place and one source to point back and say, that wasn't me. I couldn't make that happen. And so we're going to have cards every service, and we'll have them available, obviously, after this week as well. But we're going to take the needs that you write down, the things that you're believing God for, and we're going to have a big wall-ish situation. I don't even know how to describe what it is. You're going to have to see it when you come in on Sunday, and you're going to be able to hang that need on that wall. And then here's the exciting part, too. We're not just going to leave it there. We're going to have a place that when God comes through for you in a miraculous way, we want you to share your story with us because we want to celebrate what God does. We don't just want to pray for it. We want to be able to mark it down and write it down and celebrate all the things and the ways that God comes through for you. And so every week we're going to be praying for certain things in a very unique way. And it's going to be a special, special season around the church. So don't miss the month of March at Christian Life Austin. But we're not in March yet. That's coming up. That's a few days from now. We got to finish out February strong. And if you've been with us for any length of time during our midweek services, you know that when I've been speaking what feels like now for the last year on our midweek services, I started working through, for those of you that are just kind of catching us in the middle of where we're at right now, last year, just early in the year, in my prayer and devotion time, just felt the need to work through the book of 1 Samuel and study it and just read it. And the Lord just kind of prompted me and said, you need to teach this. And so I did. I started teaching chapter by chapter through the book of 1 Samuel. Well, I don't preach every Wednesday night, and so it's taken us a little while to walk through the book of 1 Samuel. But if you're just catching us on a Wednesday and you're like, man, this is my first Wednesday night ever. Am I going to? No, you're going to be just fine. You don't need to know all of the other details to know what we're talking about tonight. Each week stands alone by themselves. They do kind of build, but it's easy to just jump right in. So if you weren't here last week, I'll briefly recap kind of where the story takes us tonight. But when we were here last, we were in 1 Samuel chapter 23. And you'll remember that there was a cat and mouse game going on between Saul and David. King Saul, if you will. King Saul is the king of Israel in this moment in time, but he strayed away from the things of God, and so the Lord was on a mission to assign and to anoint another king, and that young man would happen to be known as David, the same David, yes, that would go on to slay Goliath, and that young man, David, would be anointed to be the next king, but it wasn't his time yet. The timing wasn't right. It was going to happen in the future for him to take over, but the future is not now. And as David continued to grow up, and he did some mighty things on the battlefield, and he came through for them in such a powerful way that he began to kind of rise in the kingdom, and people were looking at him as a powerful figure, and he would gain some prestige. And as you know, the king doesn't like it when somebody else gets a little bit of attention. And so Saul has this spirit of jealousy upon his life, and he is doing everything that he can to watch David fall and to watch his life crumble. And in chapter 23 alone, we see that Saul made 4 attempts to murder David in one chapter. And none of them succeeded, obviously. We know the story. But in chapter 23, we see that Saul would actually use the words because of this cat and mouse game. He can't ever seem to catch David. He uses this phrase as he's explaining it to his counterparts. He tells him, this young man, he's very, very crafty. And what we found out last week is that the reason that he called him crafty is because David was always one step ahead of Saul. Every time Saul got word where David was, when Saul went to find David, David had already left. And so it was this, again, cat and mouse game. But the reason that he was always one step ahead was not because he was very crafty, as Saul thought. As we learned last week, the reason he was always one step ahead is because David knew where to go. David would always turn to God first. Instead of turning to his own emotions and his own desire and leaning on his own understanding, he understood that prayer is my first response, not my last resort. And because of that, the Lord would drop things in his spirit to where he would know that Saul was on his tail, and so he would get out of town. And the Lord was always guiding and leading David's steps because obviously the Lord had a massive plan for David's life. And tonight, as we move into chapter 24, really, it's much of the same. We see the cat and mouse game is back in full effect as David is on the run from Saul and his attempts to murder him. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 1. After Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, David is in the desert of En-Gedi. So Saul took 3,000 able young men from all Israel and set out to look for David and his men near the crags of the wild goats. Basically, this is an area in the rocks, in the mountainside, where there were some just really, really deep caves. Now, mind you, this now would be the 20th attempt of Saul to try to murder David. Yo, that's a lot of murder attempts. That's a lot of times that one person is trying to kill you. Something's not going right here. So verse 3 says that he came to the sheep pens along the way, and a cave was there. Now, y'all, I'm 42 years old, but there's this piece of me, and unfortunately, it's bigger than what I like to admit. There's this really immature piece of me on the inside of me. I feel sometimes like a 14-year-old teenage boy. This is possibly one of the funniest scriptures ever. Picture this, or maybe don't picture this. But he came to the sheep pens along the way, and a cave was there. And Saul went in to relieve himself. Now, y'all are way more mature than me, y'all. That's funny. When nature calls, you got to go. And so Saul, he's looking for a safe place. And so he finds this cave, and he's like, oh, nobody's in the cave. I can go in the cave, take care of business, and then we'll go back to finding David and his boys. But David and his men were far back in the cave. All right? And the men said, you can see this playing out. Like, picture being deep inside of a cave, and you can see very easy. It's deep and it's dark where you're at, but you can see light at the end of the cave. It's easy for you to see somebody coming, but it's not easy for them to see somebody hidden in the deep depths of the cave. And so they're hidden back in the cave, and they see this. Of all the caves, you got to do that in here where we are. Find another cave, bro. What? That's the king. The king is urinating in our cave. And then they have this bright idea. David, this is the guy that's tried to kill you. He's after you right now. We counted him. David, this is number 20. He's trying to murder you, and he's standing at the edge of the cave. And watch. They make it spiritual. They say, this is the day that the Lord spoke of when he said to you, I will give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. Now, we're all thinking this is spiritual, but hold on just a second. I know we like this. Ooh, the Lord delivered him. But watch what happens. So David's men, they're in the process of egging him on. Bro, you got to go get him. This is your time. Bro, don't be a wuss. Let's go. Let's go. Peer pressure in adulthood. Let's go take out the guy who's been trying to kill you. We've been on the run for all that. We've been away from our families. We barely escaped murder. We could go deal with this once and for all. So David, he creeps up like a ninja in the night. He creeps up unnoticed. Now this is powerful. You're close. He sneaks up and he cuts off a small piece of his robe. So David is really, really close to Saul while Saul is taking care of business. He got so close to him that he could have murdered him. It's not a question of could David have done it. Obviously, if you're close enough to cut off a corner of his robe, you're close enough to kill the man and stab him in the back when he doesn't even know you're there. So the question of could David take him out, that's not a question. Absolutely, he could have done it. So he cuts off the corner of Saul's robe. Saul doesn't even know it. That's how ninja-like David was. And afterwards, watch this, watch. This is so powerful. Afterward, David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe. There was something on the inside of David that rose up and just said, oh my, what did I just do? Like something was just pounding on his heart and his soul saying, David, whoa. Slow down, son. Who in the world do you think you are? And he goes back to his men who were just egging him on. You got to go do this. This is your time. God said to do it. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lay my hand on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. Now, as I was studying this chapter, there's several different angles that you could go with, right? And there's so many different topics that we could talk about. But I have to tell you that there was one theme that really just jumped out at me, and it's actually something that I'm not sure that I've ever really taught on as a full-blown sermon. I may have hit a point or two about it as a passing by comment, but I've never spent an entire message built around this. But it's so plain in chapter 24 that I think I would be amiss if I didn't break this down and try to teach this principle tonight. And what we see so vividly in chapter 24 is the principle of honor. A lost art in this day and age. Honor and respect. People get upset in 2025. What'd you say yes, sir, for? What'd you say yes, ma'am, for? Like, bro, calm down. That's how my mama raised me. By the way, that's how I raised my kids. So if they say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, don't get mad at them, get mad at me. Come pick a fight with me. Body slam somebody in Jesus' name. That's a joke. I ain't body slamming nobody. I will run so fast. Ah! But honor and respect. And I love the principle of honor. To honor simply means to respect or highly esteem, to treat as precious, weighty, or valuable. Doesn't that sound like the way that we should treat people? It sounds like the way that Jesus treated people. All people. All people? Yeah, all people. You mean people that don't look like me? Yeah. People that have different beliefs than me? Yeah. People that didn't vote like me? Yeah. People that I don't really like? Yeah. This is how we should treat humanity, with honor and respect, with value. Can I tell you why some people struggle with honor? Chances are, if you know somebody that struggles with honor, my guess is they don't have a deep reverence for God. Now, that's a blanket statement, and I understand that. But let me tell you why. Because I believe that honor begins with a reverence for God. Honor begins with a reverence for God, because it's very difficult to honor people if you don't first honor God. When you honor God first, you begin to understand the heart of the Father and how the Father loves all his children. He loves all the children that you don't like. They're still his children. And he loves them. Though they're different than you, he loves them just the same as he loves. But look at me. Yeah, you hard to love right now. Attitude like that. Let me tell you why some people struggle to honor people. It's because they don't value people. They don't value people. They see relationships as transactional. But there's no intrinsic value in humanity. And if you don't find value in people, you will always struggle to honor them. Honor values people. Dishonor devalues people. Honor builds people up. Dishonor tears people down. Honor believes the best. Dishonor believes the worst. And knowing all of that, and we know the details of what that means, all of it is so true. But if we're truthful, like, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around. And I'm the one preaching. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that David would honor Saul after 20 attempts to murder him. Like, all the stuff on paper sounds good. I know what you're saying about honor. I get it. Honor, dishonor, value, blah, blah. Yeah, that. But he tried to kill him 20 times. Like, how do you honor somebody that's been that bad to you? Really think that's impressive, David. The restraint that David showed here after 20 attempts on his life is really jaw-dropping material to me. David had the perfect opportunity to seek revenge. He had been done wrong, no question, time after time after time. And then he wakes up the next day and he's done wrong again and again and again. But David chose mercy over revenge. This is unbelievable. Something this unprecedented, that he could still find it in himself to show mercy instead of revenge. I wonder how much better our relationships, friendships, sphere of influences, our communities, our neighborhoods would be if we chose mercy over revenge. But you don't understand, Pastor. You don't understand. You don't know what they said about me. You don't know what they left their trash can out too long by the street. They parked their car in front of my house. They just left it there. I wonder what would happen if you chose mercy over revenge. But if I just go out and slash their tire, it'll teach them. They won't know. Y'all laughing because it's true. It may not be that, but it's something. And we know that David recognized Saul as the Lord's anointed. But it's amazing to me how David's loyalty was to God's authority and not his own desires. See, when your loyalty is in the right place, it helps guide your desires. But when your loyalty is to your own emotions and the way that you feel, and I act on the way I feel because this is 2025 and it's my truth and I do what I want in this day and age, when you don't respect and honor God's authority, because he understood and respected and was loyal to God's authority, he could stand up to his own desires because he had a greater purpose, because he knew the plans that God had for his life. He knew that even in the middle of the hell that I'm navigating right now, I've been through 20 attempts on my life. I know that God still has a plan for my life. And if I walk up and I do this right now, but it would be easy right now. He wouldn't even see it coming. It wouldn't even be a fight. He sneaks up behind him and he cuts off a piece of his robe, but he stops. See, there's this piece of him that, bro, he wants to do it. Like, he's human. But he shows restraint. He can have the feeling, but he showed restraint. It's okay to have the emotions, but you got to be able to show restraint. And this is exactly what he does. By the way, let's take a time out here really quick, because there's some people in the room that said, bro, he should have taken him out. Now, like, people are going to judge you because you didn't deal with your business, David. Can I remind you that honor doesn't mean weakness? In fact, in this particular instance, honor is actually strength under control. To be able to have the strength that you have, the capability to act on something, but to be able to control it, oh, that's so much harder than just acting on how you feel. To be able to show restraint, so he refuses to take justice into his own hands, even when it seemed justified. How many of us, we're looking for ways to justify things? I mean, well, let me see. If I do this, then I do that. I mean, the Bible kind of talks about this, so I can we will justify anything. And if we can justify it in our minds, then we can lay our head down at night. He's not even going there. He's like, man, there is no way that I can do this in my mind because I'm so loyal to God's authority. And I think he understood this. And this is, I think you and I need to understand this today. And it's such a powerful principle that you honor a position, but you respect a person. So my guess is David probably didn't have a whole lot of respect for Saul, for the man and the character that Saul possessed. But because he was loyal to God and not his own desires, he could honor the position that God had Saul in for the moment. So when you're wronged, do you seek revenge or do you extend grace? So verse 7 says this with these words: David sharply rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul. And Saul left the cave and went his way. Now you can see this. You see the cave, and they're in the back of the cave. Saul goes marching off, and then David follows him at a distance. Again, Saul has no clue that they're there. David went out of the cave, and he calls out to Saul, "My Lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed down, prostrated himself with his face to the ground. What? David, he's tried to kill you 20 times. He said to Saul, you can just feel the emotion in David through this. Why do you listen when men say that David is bent on harming you, Saul? This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my hands in the cave, and these boys urged me to kill you. But I spared your life. I said, I will not lay a hand on my Lord. Why? Because he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, look at this piece of your robe that I have in my hand. I cut off the corner of your robe, but did not kill you. See that there is nothing in my hand to indicate that I'm guilty of wrongdoing or rebellion. I have not wronged you, but you are hunting me down to take my life. You can feel the rawness of the moment. Like I can just see this. I can see David being tired of the struggle. Like, I don't know how much longer we're going to play this game. Like, I've tried to relay my heart to you, but this is a last-ditch effort for you to understand. I'm not trying to take you out. I have no ill intent towards you. But you're coming at me with everything that you have, time and time again. David's heart is genuinely breaking because of what has transpired and how the relationship has become so fractured. The way David handled this taught me something incredibly powerful about relationships and friendships and people in our lives. David confronted Saul directly, but respectfully. He confronted him directly. He was clear on what was going on and how he felt like he had been wronged, but he did it with a sense of honor. He did it with the right heart. And I think sometimes with friends and people in our lives and relationships, we have this notion built up in our mind that if you're my friend, you have to agree with everything that I do, even if it compromises some of your values. And this is an expectation that we put on our peer group. That you have to stand by my side and tell me what I want to hear. Can I tell you that that's not an honoring relationship? What you're requiring of them is what I call blind loyalty. That I can do whatever I want, and you got to have my back because we're boys. And because we're boys, you got to agree with me. You got to stand with me. You don't want friendship. You want someone you can control. And we pass it off as trying to be honorable. I mean, we just together, we boys, we've been together for a while. That's not friendship. That's control. That's not an honoring relationship. That's using people. And you can't have healthy relationships using people. You have to see people as valuable, and your actions can't make them compromise their values. Honor speaks the truth in humility. If somebody that you're friends with in your sphere of influence can't speak the truth to you in humility, you don't want friendship. Honoring someone doesn't mean ignoring their faults. It means addressing them with a posture of humility, so that restoration can be made. The principle of honor is so powerful. Verse 12, we got to get close to wrapping this up. Watch how he approaches this next, and this is incredibly powerful too. David says, "May the Lord judge between you and me. And may the Lord avenge the wrongs that you have done to me. But as for me, as for this hand, I will not touch you. I may not respect you, but I can honor where God has you." Verse 13, as the old saying goes, from evildoers come evil deeds. So my hand will not touch you. You can try to kill me as many times as you want to kill me. And I'm going to escape every single time because God has a plan and a purpose for my life. You can try to murder me a 21st time, a 22nd time, a 23rd time, but my hand will not touch you because I understand the principle of honor. I will honor up, I will honor down, I will honor to the side. Talking about relationships, you got to learn how to honor people. You got to learn how to honor people, those that are in authority above you. You got to learn how to honor your peers and your friends. You got to honor people who may be below you on the work totem pole, who may work for you. You got to honor. Verse 14, against whom has the king of Israel come out? Who are you pursuing? A dead dog? A flea? May the Lord be our judge and decide between us. May he consider my cause and uphold it. May he vindicate me by delivering me from your hand. Which if you can't figure it out by now, Saul, he's already done it 20 times. He's going to keep doing it. But here's what you need to know, Saul. I will not, watch, I will not take matters into my own hands. I'm going to let God fight my battles. Even when I could take matters into my own hands and I could manipulate the outcome. It's right in front of me and I could do it so easily and so quickly. I will choose honor. I will choose honor instead of kicking down a door that doesn't need to be kicked down. I'm going to let the Lord have his way in this matter. Because if I do it my way, who am I? I'm just like you, Saul. I'm just like you. I took revenge when I should have showed mercy. But I'm so loyal to God's call on my life that I'm not going to act on my desires because I care what God wants to do. And I want you to know on this Wednesday night that your calling is too great and your mission is too amazing to give in to what you want and your own desires. That if you will let God deal with it in God's timing, it will always turn out better than when you take matters into your own hands. Honor gives God room to work. You got to let God fight your battles. But Pastor Brad, it's been 20 times. When's the Lord going to start fighting? See, you're looking at it the wrong way. He started fighting well before. Listen, you're not crafty. You didn't get out of there on your own volition. The Lord was leading and guiding you. He's been with you. You're not giving him credit for all the times he's brought you through already. Honor gives room for God to work. David entrusted the outcome to God. Would you stand with me all across the room?